Good evening, guys. It is Thursday night. It is generational change. For the last time, you will just be seeing me. I am Peter. Hope you're all doing well. This is not what I would consider to be a good time right now for all of us. It's actually a pretty detrimental time of great concern, as we should all have. One good note is that our channel has caught a little bit of a heater lately. Hopefully that will maintain itself. We're going to do the best we can. I was hoping that we would get to 30,000 subscribers by the time Jen returned, which will be on Monday. Looks like we might get to 40,000 subscribers before Jen returns. So needless to say, we are extremely grateful for everyone that is here. And yes, it is extremely gratifying. But at the same time, it's very uneasy to think about that type of stuff right now, considering everything that's going on. We have a lot to be concerned about. And I mean a lot. Certainly the domination of the conversation pertaining to Israel has taken on a whole new meaning. I've been trying to warn people for the longest time, and will continue to warn people, that this is not a joke. This is not something to be taken lightly. As Gerald, we are most likely going to do just that. In fact, I've been writing a lot of specific topics lately, so it probably won't surprise people that we are going to do that. I think it's important to cover as many different mediums as possible. Remember, we're going through the rebrand. We are going to do one more show before the official switch, which will be Saturday night. We're going to do another Saturday show again. We'll see if the numbers reflect that. And I felt it was necessary to have a guest on that can really speak to what's going on in this moment from a military perspective. So our good friend of the show, Colonel Larry Wilkerson, will join me on Saturday night. So you guys are definitely going to want to tune in for that. If you haven't hit the like button already, please make sure you do. If you haven't shared the stream, please make sure that you do. If you haven't clicked the bell, make sure that you do for all future clips, live streams, etc., post drops, all that good stuff. So, where do we begin? I'm gonna begin with something where I don't think this needs to be presented with any comment. I think this will just explain what a lot of us are feeling right now. This was a post that was dropped last night by the IDF.
Facing one of its biggest nuclear threats in decades. So it's best if we know a thing or two about what it means. An atomic bomb works by splitting atoms, specifically uranium or plutonium, in a process called nuclear fission. That split releases a massive amount of energy, way more than any conventional explosive. When the bomb detonates, it creates an intense blast, searing heat, and
you really have to wonder what would possess the IDF to put out a message like this. They're suggesting in this message that the reason that they're doing this has to do with this idea that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Well, that's not what I take away from it. What I take away from it is that Israel is basically saying, yeah, we're ready to drop a nuke. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I don't think so. I think it's pretty crystal clear what they're implying here. That this is what they are prepared to do. And it is a very precarious situation, to say the least. Apparently, the so-called doomsday jet has arrived in Washington. It's another version of the Air Force One. I know everyone thinks that this won't happen. It can't possibly happen. That's not what's going to happen. But everyone will say that until it does happen. And then what are you going to do?
deadly radiation. The result? Instant mass destruction, firestorms, and long-term health and environmental damage. Now that we know how powerful these weapons are, we know that we don't want them to fall in the wrong hands. However, until now, the largest terrorist army in the world was about to have it in theirs. And that is why.
This is all propaganda. That's what it is. And this is why, and that is why, this is all propaganda. Why is it that Israel is allowed to have a nuclear arsenal? In fact, they're the only country in the entire Middle East that does have it. In fact, they decided to try to saber rattle with Pakistan the other day, and that didn't go over too well because Pakistan has nukes, and they are 100% behind Iran. You know, everyone looks around and asks themselves, why? Why are we here? Why is this happening? And would things be any different if we were sitting with a different commander-in-chief right now? Well, I don't believe we would in any way. And I also have said time and again that I believe that the Democrats are infinitely more sinister than the Republicans. Do you see anybody? I mean, not that the Democrats really have leaders to begin with. Let's be fair. They don't really have anything worth noting. However, is it fair to say that in this moment, you would think some of them would be stepping up? I mean, few of them. Credit to Tim Kaine, Senator Tim Kaine, for going with Congressman Thomas Massie to put a bill on the table to force a congressional vote regarding any type of military action against Iran. And we'll see what happens with that. But we all know with Trump, he just does what he wants, pretty much. And I see the Democrats as just a party that sees this as an opportunity politically. Rather than trying to, do something for humanity, they're looking at it as, ooh, maybe if Trump fucks up just enough, that might actually help us. That's what they're thinking. Why do I say that? This is Chuck Schumer.
Comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran. What kind of bull is this? They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything?
Oh, come on, just bomb them. What are you waiting for? Do it. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. They just sit on the side. They look at it as, well, if they bomb Iran, that's going to be really good for the Democrats. That's what they sit around and think to themselves. How could this possibly benefit us politically? If a few 100,000 people have to die, it's going to be good for us. So why don't we just do it? Why don't we just go along with this racket and say, yes, it's going to suck for a lot of people. Hell, it might even suck for us. Maybe we even get sucked into having to send troops over there. But for political purposes, this could be a total swoon for the Democrats. And that's what, I don't have these glasses that I wear. Would have been perfect. That's That's why Chucky the Shoom has his glasses down around his nose, because he wants, he likes to pretend he's professorial when he's making these statements, as if he's really saying something that's going to be prophetic in some way. But he's got a little bit more to say.
Everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deals.
Even if it means averting war, especially a world war. Yeah, let's not worry about that. Could somebody, you know what, guys, I'd like to think that I'm up to snuff on a lot of stuff that we talk about politically, but could somebody please explain to me what Taco Trump is, like what this means? Somebody please drop it in the chat, because I'm dying to know what this so-called insult that's being thrown at Trump is. Taco Trump. And then people ask themselves, would anything be different if Kamala Harris was president? And that's all the libs want to talk about. You see what happens? You put Trump in there and this is what we get? Well, let's remind everybody. Let us be crystal clear about the language, consistent language, no coded language. They always like to suggest that Trump always chickens out. That's what that means. They're really are they trying to bait him to attack Iran? Because that's what I think. That's how it comes off to me. I'm seeing this as, let's see if we could get him to just give in. Well, let me tell you, if Kamala Harris was president, because that's what a lot of people want to fancy right now is, well, if only Kamala was in there, things would be so much better. We could go back to brunch. And they probably would. But this is what she had to say.
Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran.
So you're going to say Iran. This is almost a year ago that she says that our greatest enemy is Iran. That's our greatest enemy? This is while a genocide is being committed by against the Palestinian people. Keep that in mind. So this is her response. And you're all so confident that if only she was there, everything would be fine. I saw one of those Democratic twits, Victor Shi, I think is his name, another brainiac, child of trust fund privilege who ended up at an Ivy school and now works his ass off for the Democratic establishment behind the scenes. That son of a bitch actually put out a tweet the other day with the picture of the woman holding up the sign saying, if Kamala was president, we all be at brunch. And he was lauding that, saying that that is absolutely correct. And it's so on point with LA vibes. Yeah. Remember, genocide's fine as long as it's done politely. If it's done chauvinistically, then we have a problem with it. The way I see it, why should we have either? I like it more when people are just out front cunts. Know what I mean? That's better.
Iran has American blood on their hands. Okay, this attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power.
This is over a year ago, or about a year ago. Do you guys not get it yet? Is it still? Are there still people that can't see this, who can't see the obvious? It doesn't matter who's in charge up front. It's who's in charge behind the scenes. That's what matters. This has been in works for a long time. And they sensed an opportunity to go get it. And they're going to continue down this path. This isn't changing. They are supremely confident that they could sell this. And I think that they feel that if somebody like Kamala was there, it would be a lot easier to sell it. Because the one thing that we've noticed, and that's what's going to be obviously at the heart of the conversation this evening as we go forward, especially when it comes to Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, when the Democrats were in power this previous year, they did everything in their power, and their base, if you will, did everything in their power to try to keep everybody silent. Don't mess this up. I know things are bad, but it could be so much worse if Trump gets in. And yet Trump is in here right now, and you're seeing a legitimate civil war between the MAGA factions, the ones that are more libertarian leaning and the ones that are clearly more neocon leaning. And that is actual, real constructive fighting that goes on amongst the ranks. To their credit, the anti-war sentiment is significantly higher and of greater range than anything the neocons are putting out. And that's not even factoring in the Israel component, which only makes it even more overwhelming in favor of not being involved in this. But when the Democrats are in power, they soft sell all of this. The same stuff, they sell it nonstop. And because Kamala says it in such a gentle way, in such a soft way, that must make it better. That makes it better. We can't possibly lose if somebody like Kamala is selling it. I mean, after all, she's a woman of color, not a big, white, ugly buffoon like Trump. So that makes it better.
That is one of my highest priorities.
So if you
And
have
that must
proof
be.
that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
In other words, yes, I will. You're not supposed to ask me that question on national television. You're supposed to give me softballs, and then I'll think about it after the fact. But we all know that she doesn't have any say. She's just there to change the drapes. She wanted that cushy life, and she fought really hard to get it. And she was almost there. And she is beside herself that she did not become the president. And she didn't have to do anything. Literally nothing. She got handed the vice presidency. Then she got handed the nomination. And she really thought she was going to win, which is why I feel bad for California, because I am definitely convinced that that woman's running for governor. That's going to happen. But I hope it's a good thing for somebody like Butch Ware, because hopefully she'll clear the field. And then people will be looking around for another option. Don't challenge me, Zainab. Don't challenge me. Sometimes people need to be told what they are with certain language. If you don't like it, that's too bad. I am not apologetic. I am very direct. That's how I roll. I will not sugarcoat anything, especially when it's not necessary. There are kids dying every day being targeted by a nation that this woman vehemently would be protecting. Period. But because it's a soft sell, because she's not a crude fuck like Trump is, it makes it better. No, it doesn't make it better. In fact, it makes it worse because it gets people to ease up on their so-called resistance, but really it's rebellion. People don't like that word rebellion. People don't like the word revolution because it gets them into this whole thought process of, communism and things like that. But no, the American people have to stop pussyfooting around stuff, including language. We are not going to solve any of these problems if we think we're going to have soft sells on any of this stuff. As I said, when you've got the doomsday plane flying into DC now to basically grab the president and take him up into the air, yes, maybe it's an overreaction. Maybe it isn't. But what I do know is that people are going to continue to throw this language around of maybe we just have to be friendly and that'll stop. No. It's not going to solve anything. And now we're staring down the barrel of a nuclear exchange. And people think that that's a joke. It's not. The IDF doesn't put out videos like that because they're trying to sell you on this idea that Iran is somehow going to get a nuke. No, what they're doing is they're letting you know that they're willing to drop a nuke. That's the real danger. We'll continue.
Is a destabilizing, dangerous force in the Middle East, and today's attack on Israel only further demonstrates that fact. As I have said, I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself against Iran and Iran-backed terrorist militias. My commitment to the security of Israel is unwavering.
My commitment to Israel is unwavering. Unwavering. She's not going to move off of that line. Why would she? Who else is? I mean, you have AOC still going around saying Israel has the right to defend itself. Give credit where credit's due to Zohran Mamdani, who's running for mayor of New York City. He is getting death threats out the yin-yang. Michael Bloomberg has given Andrew Cuomo almost $10 million in campaign contributions to stop him. That's pretty fucked up. But it also shows their level of desperation, which is at a fever pitch at this point. I don't want to put too much stock into one election making a significant difference in our daily lives, but in terms of people's outlook, I would imagine that if Zohran is able to win, that would definitely be a swoon that is much needed in this moment, especially when you consider everything that's going on right now.
And let us be clear, Iran is not only a threat to Israel, Iran is also a threat to American personnel in the region.
So as I said, if you think things would somehow be better if we just stuck this puppet into the White House, well, you're seeing right now where she stands. This is now. The interview I showed you with Bill Whitaker was from last year. This is now. So nothing's changed. Not a thing. In fact, you would think with somebody not in power and kind of trying to read the tea leaves of where people were, that somehow, some way, maybe she'd be a little bit more sensible about what she was saying. No, not even a little bit. There is no sensibility. It's, we are all going down if Israel goes down. They are prepared to strap themselves in and attach us to that sinking ship. We can't allow that to happen.
Will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend U.S. forces and interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists.
And remember who the terrorists are, guys. It's Hamas, Palestinians. Now, she really thought she could split the difference, so to speak, but she knows that she can't. She's not capable of it. And neither is the Democratic Party in its current construct, and it will not switch. That's why, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to suggest that AOC is capable of running for president and garnering a lot of momentum, because there's still a lot of people that are fooled under this notion that if you run under the Democratic Party banner, that somehow it's going to change. No, it's not. It's not going to change. The detrimental circumstances that we face right now are ones where the unification has to be amongst the populace. It's not through electoral means. Not that elections don't matter, they do. But there's far-reaching greater situations here that we have to take into consideration. I play this for you right out of the gate to just ensure people that if you think you can vote your way out of this, you can't. And even when Trump is gone, and eventually he will be, that doesn't change the system. The system will continue to refine itself so that it goes completely out of sight, out of mind. And we are a crumbling empire. That is who we are. That is exactly why I put this together to start tonight. People need to realize how serious this situation is and realize that this isn't a Donald Trump special. This is our system showing its true colors. They've wanted Iran forever. They've wanted Iran since 1979. I mean, they couldn't just do it overnight, but over time, they got themselves built up where they felt comfortable to go after this and make it so. They have neoconned the Democratic Party to such an extent that in many ways it's worse than the Republicans, because there is an awakening happening on the Republican side that isn't happening on the Democratic side. They're not able to sell it the same way on the Republican side now, which is very interesting. But I still think a big reason for that is because there are so many people who voted with the GOP that had voted for Bush and Cheney, and they saw what happened. And so many of them ended up in Iraq and Afghanistan. And they realized what a colossal failure and disaster that was. And now that they were led to believe that Trump was somebody who was different and why it became such a groundswell of support for him as a result. And that is why they had said, well, damn it, he's different. No, he's not. Not anymore. And everyone can say, well, he's just doing this. He's just, no, there is so much danger in the air right now that it's going to take just one misstep for things to get really bad really fast. That is the essence of why this situation is so dangerous. It's not that Trump is doing anything at the moment, but they're bringing in a fucking arsenal into the Mediterranean. This is like the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again. Yes, a nuclear weapon was never dropped during the height of the Cold War, but you better believe a misstep could have made that so. And if it wasn't for the back channel communications between Kennedy and Khrushchev, it probably would have happened. Even though people think no one would actually drop a nuke. Are you sure about that? You have two major factions going on in this country right now between the Zionist Jews and the evangelical Christians who are like aching for the rapture to happen. When people put their religious beliefs front and center, get as far as fucking away from them as you possibly can. They are the most dangerous people in politics because they don't think with reason, passion, or justice, as Jen has said so many times since we've started this odyssey into podcasting and being political activists. You cannot ever compromise with people who say that God told me to do this. I don't care if people believe in God. I believe in God. I don't believe in organized religion, and I don't believe in the mixing of church and state. And what else I don't believe is this concept that we should be listening to people pull levers of power that actually put religion ahead of everything else. In fact, religion is so damn dangerous when it comes to the evangelicals because they think that they're going to experience the rapture in their lifetime. Not that the earth is 4.5 billion years, or is it 5.5 billion years old, and yet you have people with certain denominations within Protestantism who believe that the earth is 6,000 years old. This is the level of psychosis that we are dealing with. Tucker is religious, Z, but he's a Catholic. Now, my father and his fiance are, I would call them practicing. But I can tell you there is a distinct difference between the two. There's a lot of problems with Catholicism, no two ways about it. But they are not bloodthirsty the way that Protestants are, particularly evangelicals. I'm not even going to say Protestants as a whole. The evangelicals are as bloodthirsty as the Zionists are. Those people are very dangerous. And we have to take that into consideration. The other thing we have to take into consideration are the people that are selling Trump as some type of a deity that you can simply not question the dear leader. That's the other part of the problem that we're entering here. This idea that Trump is infallible and you can't question him. That is a very dangerous place to be because we've seen the effects of what happens when you are not allowed to question authority. We saw what happened when you were not allowed to question Joe Biden under any circumstances, even though the guy was half dead. Now you have a person who isn't half dead. He's just half cocked all the time because I totally have to prove how tough I am. I am a really, really incredible negotiator, smartest person alive. We're doing a really great job, and we are totally saving humanity. I mean, he has a God complex, as do a lot of people in politics. He's not the only one. He's just one who knows how to maneuver as effectively as sort of a deity as anybody I've ever seen. I mean, people literally say you can't. Granted, most of them are being paid to talk like this. But you cannot question dear leader Trump. It is not allowed. You must adhere to the will of Donald J. Trump. And there are many people high up on the hog who are benefiting from just going along with this idea that he simply cannot be questioned. And not only can he not be questioned, but that people who question his motives are simply anti-Semitic. Now, I know We obviously are going to get to Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz as the night goes along, but there is somebody that I want to get to because there's a lot of people with big platforms and have influence and they espouse certain messages. But the person that I wanted to address this evening, which I don't think I've actually ever addressed directly with a full segment before, is Patrick Bet-David. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Valuetainment, let me just say this is an organization that is basically based on pyramid scheme. It's multi-level marketing. And he has been called out 9 Ways to Sunday online many times before. Now, I've never done that, but what I can tell you about Patrick Bet-David is that he has a podcast that he runs just outside of our congressional district in a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. That's where his show is done. And I reached out to his group to try to get Jen on for an interview when she was running against Wasserman Schultz for Congress. And when I tell you that they did a big song and a dance, and basically it came right down to, are you willing to pay Patrick Bet-David money to have Jen come on the podcast? And what was I'm not going to say how much, but let's just say it's in the thousands of dollars in order to consider having her on. And there was no guarantee either. No, I'm not a sucker, as much as I would have liked to have allowed Jen to get her message out there to more people in South Florida that probably would want to support her against Wasserman Schultz. That didn't end up happening. And then that wasn't the end of it. Then you had his grifters calling me nonstop about, do you want to get involved with this mastermind or that mastermind, like Grant Cardone or Tony Robbins? Same thing. This is what he does. Patrick Bet-David is a grifter, pure and simple. And this is what he had to say regarding Israel and Iran.
Doesn't want an open economy. Saudi doesn't get up and MBS doesn't get up and say death upon America. Screw the infidels. They should die. We should kill them. That's not how they negotiate. So again, I'm not sitting here saying let's go to war. What I'm saying to you is the Middle East would probably be a better place if a different regime was running Iran.
Now, why would a guy say something like that and at the same time out of his mouth talk about how great the regime in Saudi Arabia is? Nobody subjugates women. I'm not saying that Iran is a picnic because they certainly are not. But no country subjugates women like Saudi Arabia does. But why would he be sucking off Saudi Arabia? Because Saudi Arabia is open for business. That's the reason. Iran is not. Iran is not open for business. Not under our terms, which is why I've often said, and I know that there are a lot of people who want out from the Islamic regime that runs Iran. I have no doubt that they do. But under what circumstances? At what cost? That's what people have to ask themselves. Mohammed bin Salman runs Live Golf. This is a transition away from their current structure, which has been nonstop oil for generations. They're trying to refine their message and their image. But remember, everything is all about money and power. It would be one thing if Patrick was being objective in his critique of Iran, but suggesting that Saudi Arabia is a walk in the park. It isn't. It is oil. And oil is money and power. That's what this is about.
And if that was the case, we would be more at peace. It doesn't mean Israel's not going to change being, what's the word? Ambitious. It doesn't mean Israel's going to change being less ambitious and wanting to get their Mossad to lower all this. And AIPAC's going to slow down. No, they're going to keep doing their agenda.
And what is their agenda, Patrick Bet-David? Their agenda is genocide. Their agenda is greater Israel. And by any means necessary. Listen to that language again.
Yes. It doesn't mean Israel's going to change being less ambitious and wanted to get their Mossad to lower all this, AIPAC's going to slow down. No, they're going to keep doing their agenda.
Less ambitious. That's the language he uses to describe Israel. Less ambitious. Whew. That's one hell of a way to defend genocide. Patrick's from Iran, by the way.
None of that's going to slow down. But the common denominator here is everybody on the right was happy when Qasem Soleimani, oh my God, that's my leader. That's my president. He's shown strength. But now, no. Why? Because there's Israel derangement syndrome. And guess what? You either have TDS or you have IDS. We have one.
So now it's Trump derangement syndrome or it's Israel derangement syndrome. That's what it is. If anybody has not looked into Patrick Bet-David and how he made his money, I mean, I come from New Jersey, so there was a time where I considered getting a Series 7. There was a time where I considered the prospect of, would it make sense to work for a company like this? Little did I know, but I was in my fairly, I would say early, mid-20s at the time. And there was a company that was similar to Patrick's company. It was called Advocare. Advocare was promoted by Super Bowl winning quarterback Drew Brees. And I'm sure they paid him a lot of money to promote their products. But it's all a pyramid scheme. To the last drop, that's what it is. And that's what he sells. He sells a very aggressive form of insurance. That's what he does. And who does he hire? He hires young, impressionable men trying to make it in the world. Little do people know that only about 2 to 3% of the actual agents that work for his company actually make any real money. The rest of them end up paying out of pocket to work for this guy. That's how he got rich. No secrets here. So is it a stretch that somebody who Valuetainment has a shade under 7 million subscribers? That grift is working beautifully now. It's kind of like when the mafia decides to go legitimate. You make your money, you establish yourself, you don't want to be in the family business anymore. So we change our philosophy. We're no longer going to be doing gambling, liquor, casino, women, things like that. We're going to put our money in legitimate business. And that's basically what he's talking about. We're going to go into legitimate business. His legitimate business is selling all of these wonderful mastermind events, as I said, like Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone sell. Make people pay a lot of money, get a lot of big names to come and speak. They do them all in South Florida because, of course, they do. And you get the big names to show up, including the likes of Tom Brady. That's who comes. And for them, it's, hey, I'm getting paid. You want to hear my story? That's great. Happy to share it. I can't speak for the boss and what the fuck he's doing and what his intentions are. But it's pretty clear that this guy's slick as shit. Slick, slick like grease. Just like in his hair.
One of the two.
Here's my question. So how does this play out to help Iranian people? So they're gonna go in there. They're gonna bomb. They're telling everybody to get out of Tehran, where my mom and dad are from, where your whole family's, where you're from. What I want to know, so kill all. They're already taking out the leadership, which is a great thing. Then you're gonna take out Khomeini. I'm just curious. What is the plan?
What's the end goal? Your question is, what's the end goal?
I love plans. By the way, and I'm not sitting here advocating for Iran or their leadership at all. I'm just curious Israel is doing it. We're gonna get put into it. What is the end game? Now you take out Khomeini, you take out all the nuclear stuff. Okay, then what? Israel's gonna put somebody in, or are they gonna have elections? I don't know what that looks like. That's what I'm curious for. And again, not pro Iran or what's happening over there. I am just anti-United States as a veteran going to war. That's it.
Think about that. And Vinny Oshana is the only person with any redeemable quality on this entire show. I actually like Vinny. And of course, Vinny's coming at it from the perspective of, I served in the military. I know exactly what this shit's all about. The people who are always the loudest and advocating for us to get involved in more endless war, only in this case, it could get a lot worse. Vinny is trying to plant the seed that this message is the wrong message. This is not the road we should be going down. And of course, I agree with him. But the biggest shitbag of all on that fucking channel is about to open his stupid mouth.
Simple.
Let me respond to Vinny. I totally understand where you're coming from.
So let's just set the table here in case you guys don't know who Adam Sosnick is. He comes from the same area that Jen Perlman comes from. He's a spoiled little shit who ended up in a very good career, and he is a full-blown Zionist of the highest order from North Miami Beach. Jewish geography, as Jen would say. Here's a guy who can't wait to put people into harm's way. Does this look like a guy who would know what the fuck to do in basic training, much less in combat?
More than you actually think. Because I think as an American, we look at what we've done over the last couple decades, getting involved in foreign wars, and there's a lot of Americans who are just like, I'm so over this. Afghanistan, Iraq, what we're going on out there. But just because you're over that, it's almost like we're playing scared now. Now we have
we're playing scared now. Here's a guy who would never lift a finger to defend this country, and he's like, what are you all, a bunch of pussies? You're not ready to fight? That's what he's really saying.
$1 trillion military budget. Why are we spending so much money? To let our machinery and defense capabilities rust like we're the old Soviet Russian military? In my opinion, a lot of you guys are playing scared and don't recognize what's actually happening in front of your eyes. Not hypothetical, not playing scared. The Iranian regime is teetering and at any point might be eliminated. By the way, the Ayatollah Khamenei is 86 years old, going on to meet his martyr pretty soon.
You know, the one thing about these Zionist Jews that they just can't help themselves with, they wear their bigotry on their fucking face. Like, they can't help it. He so much wants to call him a sand. For those of you who know what I'm referring to, you'll understand. But that is what he's trying to imply. Why don't you just call him a go fucker while you're at it? This is also, again, the problem with the Zionists in general. They have an ethnic, cultural, social, and religious superiority about themselves when they view other people. And this guy is no different. In fact, he is the embodiment of what the South Florida Zionist Jew is all about. He really embodies it. Now, the only reason we haven't really talked about it before with Jen, but Jen grew up with guys like this. That's why she's so adamant about being against this movement. Adam Sosnick is that guy, especially in Florida. If you want to know what the face of the Zionist Jew in Florida looks like, that's it. That's him. He's the guy. Total douchebag.
And Israel, this little country that could, has eliminated every terror threat around them. And they're probably looking at Iran and being like, we've taken out their air missile defense capabilities. We've just taken down their nuclear facilities, despite people thinking they don't have nuclear capabilities. And in Israel,
you know, the other thing about this guy that I think doesn't get pointed out enough is that he is such a dumb fuck. Like, he really is. He doesn't even acknowledge the fact that most of Iran's defense systems are underground. He don't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about the type of cluster bombs that would need to be dropped in order to hit those facilities, and that Israel is not capable of doing that with their current arsenal. and that it would require our weaponry to go in there and do it. And the worst part is that he talks like he's smart. He thinks he's intelligent. I would say, AJ, that the two of them compete for that level of ignorance and stupidity. I would agree.
To the point where Iran is now calling Qatar, Saudi, countries around the Middle East, basically saying, please help me. We need your help against Israel.
Israel has Bibi Netanyahu go on national television on several networks saying, please help us, United States. Iran's going to destroy us.
This is the same regime that's talking tough, chanting kill, death to Israel, death to America, death to England, death to the infidels. So
why would they be saying that? Why would they be saying that? Could they be saying that because maybe they don't want fucking nuclear weapons pointed in their direction? This guy oozes such stupid privilege. I'm telling you, for any of you who have not been to Aventura in North Miami, if you don't like Zionists, you wouldn't last very long there. Or Boca Raton, for that matter.
In my opinion, I totally understand why you're frustrated, but if I could go and recreate everything we've done over the last 20 years, I wouldn't be in Afghanistan, I wouldn't be in Iraq, I wouldn't be in Libya, I wouldn't be in Syria, I wouldn't do any of this. I would stay laser focused on the massive problem in the Middle East, and that is the Islamic Republic of Iran, period.
I mean, it's a damn shame we had to kill all those people for the past 20 years, but the real enemy is Iran. That's the real enemy. That's who we have to go fight. Now, don't expect me to go over there and do the fighting. You got to go over there and do it for me, because I am a fucking pussy motherfucker. That's what I am. Another guy who never properly got his ass kicked. Ever. I don't know how Vinny hasn't pummeled him into the ground. Notice how the veteran or the soldier says this isn't a good idea. And the cuck pussy who wouldn't know how to defend his way out of a wet paper bag says, no, we have to go fight. We need war. More war. And this guy, if you ever read the comment section on this channel, everybody hates his guts. Everybody. Nobody likes him. These are people that watch the channel, that love PBD, that love Vinny, but they fucking hate this guy. They hate him. So why is he on the show? That's what you have to ask yourself. What the fuck does this guy have that we can't see? You know what I think? I think he's connected. I think he's connected to the Israel lobby. I think he brings money into PBD's world and he gets to play around like he's some big shot on a big podcast. That's the trade-off. He brings nothing to the table. Nothing. In fact, he probably hurts the channel in a way that Patrick doesn't necessarily see. But again, it's not for us to decide why this guy is a front and center part of their channel. All I know is that anyone with half a brain, and a lot of them who watch the show have at least that, are saying, why is this guy still on the show? He's just another version of Ben Shapiro. That's what he is. And I'm not saying, as I said before, that this is any type of a channel that's worth going, riding home about. Because as I've said, Patrick Bet-David runs a grifting operation if there ever was one. I almost got Jen and I caught in the crosshairs of it. Thankfully, it didn't happen. As I said, they teased the idea of Jen coming on the podcast, but they wanted money. A lot of money. Yeah, we'll bring her on. Yeah, you don't have a big enough platform. Well, let me tell you something. At the rate our channel is growing right now, maybe in 6 months to a year, they might say, oh, yeah, your channel's big enough now. Now we'll have you on. Life lesson for all of you guys. people who are only interested in talking with you based on the amount of revenue they think they can gin up from you and not the message itself, especially if it's of quality, fuck them. Don't ever give in. Don't ever allow yourself to be in that position. Adam Sosnick is a prime example of somebody who was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. And there's a lot of people out there in that class that think like that. He just happens to be an insufferable bitch, and that's why he acts this way. And don't think he would hesitate for a second to support the genocide, to support endless war, and even world war, as long as he's not fighting it. And that's the message. As I said, we are very grateful for how much this channel has grown recently. I am not going to take credit, even though I've been basically running a solo operation for the past few weeks. I think at some point, you know, it's kind of like the algorithm. You grab it, you hang on to it for dear life, and you try to run with it as best you can. That's all you can do. And that's what we've done. And that's why we're grateful for every one of you that are here right now. And if you are so inclined, if you haven't already, please go over to patreon.com/generational change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. In fact, as we do these numbers that are going across the board, I have to add a new patron, as Jen pointed out, wanting to let me know that we have a new member that has joined our small but mighty channel. And of course, we are very grateful for everyone who ends up hopping on board. And that is going to be under our $10 patron. We have a new person. His name is Ahmed Albiadi. Ahmed, thank you very much for becoming a $10 patron. And again, for those of you who are interested in becoming a contributor to our small but mighty channel, if you choose to drop a super chat, those are also much appreciated as well. Esjera, thank you so much for the 149. We have two new members this evening. Tolo Emia, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. And Dariush Manavi, thank you very much for becoming a YouTube member. Brett Boyle, our trustworthy mod in the chat, thank you for the 2 Canadian A. Don't forget to smash those likes and share. Well, we certainly hope if you guys are here that you've all done such, and we appreciate any amount of support in terms of just liking the stream, sharing the stream, hitting the bell to make sure that you are reminded of when we go live with our streams. All of that matters, and we appreciate each and every one of you who do. Racecar 789, thank you so much for the $20. Great show today. Keep up the good work. Thank you for your support. We can't do it without you. Sajid Nasir, thank you so much for the $9.99. I hope I said your name right, or Sajad Nasir. Thank you so much for the $9.99. PBD and Grant Cardone is the reason why I hate the word entrepreneur, because it's lost its meaning, and hustle culture will be the reason why we all have serious depression and recession soon. Well, I think it is incumbent upon us to expose people like PBD and Grant Cardone and let people know that it's just one big scam. You're not learning anything new. Now, what I will say, because I've been to 2 Grant Cardone events in South Florida, the goal is to go there and network, to connect with like-minded investors who are not selfish, just say, I mean, entrepreneurs is not the right word. These are just people who are trying to make a quick buck. And we've got a lot of that out there. And they feel like they're going to learn some type of a secret sauce from somebody like Grant Cardone or Patrick Bet-David if they attend their events. You're not going to learn anything. What you're going to learn is a lesson that people learn at the poker table, which is if you can't spot the sucker in the first half hour you sit down at the table, then you are the sucker. Sajat Nasir with the $4.99. Vinny is a conservative who would be open to single payer, protecting Social Security, pro-union, pro and antitrust legislation, true America first. He's a throwback conservative. He's in the mold of what he, I guess, perceived Ronald Reagan to be, but more so like an Eisenhower Nixon Republican. That definitely sounds more in line with that. And Sajid Nasir with the $1.99. PBD recently had Islamophobe Tommy Robinson. Well, PBD will have anybody on his show that will help make him more money. That's his MO, period. Chip, thank you so much for the $4.99. And we appreciate you all being here this evening, lending a hand, making sure that our channel continues to grow. We are, as we have discussed, closing in on 40,000 subscribers, which is just, again, I don't have a moment's peace to slow down and kind of reflect upon that. Thank you, Jessica. We love you. And I know you've been with us for a very, very long time. The one thing that I am very proud of with our channel is that we've never skipped the line. We have never, gone down that rabbit hole of let's just go with an audience capture topic and bleed it for all it's worth. Just continue to talk about it nonstop. That is the only thing that matters. The only thing that matters. And I can prove this. You know how I can prove it? I'm going to prove it all to you right now. That it really does make a difference when you have an honest approach to how podcasting is supposed to be done. Now, you think about a big channel like David Pakman's. I'm going to show you guys an interesting thing. It is his website. And you're going to notice something about this website. Now, looks like a regular website, Mr. Try to be dapper with his fancy hair and all that. But in reality, there is a secret ingredient here to his channel. 3 million subscribers, 2 billion views. Wow, that's amazing. What type of content is this guy talking about on a regular basis? Oh, there it is. Every single topic of discussion is about Don. It's totally about me. It's my party and I'll cry if I want to. This guy's a total loser. All he wants to do is talk about me. He should be paying me. He really should. He owes me lots of money. Trump rolling in streets has triggered Caroline Levitt, Skulls reporter. Trump voters in tears. Record-setting protest. Trump parade. Trump flips out on Fed chair. MAGA civil war. This guy is a total loser. Really, really terrible person. And the truth is he is a joke. Like everybody else. That's what people end up doing. That's total audience capture right there. Total audience capture. That's what he has. It's the same thing that the Midas Touch bros do. It's the same thing that the Pod Save America guys do. They don't have anything genuine about what they talk about. They're just doing rage bait clicking shit all the time. And if it works talking about Donald Trump 24/7, then that's what they're going to do. That's it. And of course, it culminates in getting invited to the White House and being part of I don't even know what the hell that group was, but there was like a podcast for all of the grifters that are, you guys know who they are. You see them on a regular basis. JoJo from Jersey, Victor Shee, the Midas Touch Boys, David Pakman, Pod Save America bros. You guys know who these guys are. Harry Sisson. Harry Sissy. It's all for money. There's really nothing to their shtick. It's just a grift. It's just a different revenue stream to get paid and continue to talk about the same topic over and over again, which is why many people have suggested that no one is more happier than them that Trump ended up in the White House again. And I believe that people like that are thrilled beyond words that Donald Trump is president, because for them, they see it as a revenue stream. It's the same thing with the Democrats not saying anything about the fact that World War III is actually possible right now, because for them, they see it as political cannon fodder in which they could successfully get back into power. They're looking for the surest thing, which is, hey, whatever it takes. That's what it's about. Vilma Thomas, if it is morning where you are, then I am curious where you are. I'm going to assume that you're somewhere in the Middle East, maybe? Would it be? Yeah, I think it would be right now. Okay, so that makes sense. When it comes to how we get to these places, I believe it's important that we do research, but we also share the research of those that are doing the amazing work. One of those people is friend of the show, James Lee, who we connected with about a year ago, a little over a year ago, worked for Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar, and he has his own channel, 5149. And he has been doing incredible work regarding journalistic research on key topics. And this story regarding Iran is critical in this moment right now.
Not, we are the ones responsible for this. In 1951, this man, Mohammad Mossadegh, was democratically elected by the people of Iran. He was named Time Magazine's Man of the Year, specifically for standing up to Western imperialism. But he did something unforgivable to the West, which was to nationalize the Iranian oil industry.
There you go. And that seems to be the number one no-no that any of these countries around the world end up doing. If you think that you are going to circumvent the West when it comes to resources, especially oil, oh no. Can't do that. Not allowed. Saddam Hussein did it. Muammar Gaddafi did it. Mossadegh did it. But in our mind, we have to control everything. We are the global superpower after all. And we only know one speed, which is full blast.
So what do? Well, we sent in the CIA to overthrow his government in a secret operation called Project Ajax.
And that is exactly what they are attempting to do now. Anything that the CIA is up to, we don't know what they're doing. And that's only one shadow government agency that is involved in these clandestine operations. This is clear as day. So when people ask, how did we end up with the Islamic Republic of Iran? We did it. It's our fault. We gave rise to the Shah Kalamani. That's us. There wasn't some tyrannical regime that just decided to take over Iran. We'll continue.
We then installed the Shah, who gave us unfettered access to the oil, but was also a brutal dictator. We're talking about secret police, torture, executions. And this eventually led to the rise of the Ayatollah and the Islamic fundamentalist regime that we know today in Iran. In fact,
and that is an excellent point that James is making that everybody should recognize. If the West removes Soleimani from power and installs some type of a puppet government, much like we did back in 1953, the same pattern will repeat itself. And endless amounts of people are going to die as a result. That's what will happen. So when I share information regarding a good friend of mine who has family in Tehran, and they say, we want out from the Shah, but not if it's going to be done at the hands of the West. That's the difference. It's the same. The lesson has not been learned, but there is more to this.
the U.S. has repeatedly overthrown secular governments in the Middle East because they oppose Western imperialism, which We just talked about Iran, but there was also Iraq in 1963 and also in 2003 with Saddam Hussein, Afghanistan in the 1980s, Libya in 2011, Syria also in 2011. Those are under Obama. I mean, if you take
You can't talk that way about Obama. How dare you? It's not the only wars that Obama started. Obama started 5. But hell, I'm a fun guy. Can't get on my ass. Stick to Bush. Stick to Trump. Yeah, Obama started the most wars. That's a damn shame. But that map is everything. That is the Middle East. Israel has 90 nuclear warheads. The rest of the Middle East, 0. Incredible. But that's an inconvenient truth that nobody wants to talk about. Why should Israel have nuclear weapons? Why shouldn't Iran have their own? If Iran had nuclear weapons, they wouldn't be messed with now, would they? Kind of like North Korea. We'll saber rattle the shit out of them, but we won't actually do anything because then they can fight back. I actually think Iran does have nuclear capability. That's my opinion. Now, I could be wrong, but assuming they don't have it, they're definitely aligned with people that do. That's for sure.
Take a look at this map. It's almost like it's not about the nuclear weapons. Please, let's not get lied into yet another regime change war in the Middle East.
But it sure as hell seems like we are. That's what they're attempting to do right now. And even in light of the fact, whether it is Pakistan that has a nuclear weapon, or the fact that we are completely seeing through the bullshit of the Israel lobby. Again, the silver lining that we all have to take from this is recognizing that this is all just one big lie. That's all this is. Everything about Iran is a lie. And how do we know that? Because CNN, of all places, decided to air this clip about Netanyahu.
And for attaining this goal is getting extremely close.
That was 1996 when I was president of the United States.
Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems.
So this is September of 2002 when I was president of the United States and we hadn't even invaded Iraq yet. This guy goes on national television and wants to subtly throw in the fact that he thinks that Iran is worse than Iraq. There's a pattern here, guys. Pay attention.
That they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage.
You know, somebody pointed out the other day, this almost looks like a Looney Tunes cartoon with the way he drew that bomb, and it sure does as far as I can tell. But didn't you say back in 1996 that they would have nuclear capability in 6 months, and now it's 16 years after the fact? And this is 2012, mind you. Yeah, but not done yet.
From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb. The foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. That would.
But that's not true. You already have an arsenal of nuclear weapons because nobody has sponsored more terrorism around the world than Israel in conjunction with the United States. Isn't that true, ladies and gentlemen? I think so.
Place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year. It could be within a few months.
It could be another 15 years, but we must build up our military strength. We must build it up right now. We must take out Iran right now. Come on, I've been saying the same thing for 30 fucking years. I'm going to be right at some point, aren't I? Law of averages say that I've got to be right sometime. That's how he's looking at it.
Less than a year.
And yet there isn't anybody on corporate media who is going to point this out and point out the absurdity of continuing to claim that we are in imminent danger if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. That's the level of psychosis that we have to deal with in politics on a regular basis. And unfortunately, it does work on some people. It doesn't work on everybody, but it works on enough. It works on enough people to convince corporate media heads that still have some semblance of a network viewer share that this is the way. But we are an extremely propagandized nation. What gives me some hope is that I do think a lot of people are seeing through the bullshit. I just don't know if we have enough time to stop it from happening in this moment. That's my great concern, is that, yes, do I think that the Israel lobby stranglehold over our government and our daily lives has reached its peak? I think it has. It's never going to be as strong ever again, because too many people are aware now of exactly what they're up to and what their modus operandi is, and eventually it just changes. Eventually, again, I say it every show. It's as Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people all the time. You can fool all the people some of the time. You can't fool all the people all of the time. And that is what the Israel lobby has been accustomed to doing for a very long time. But it's not taking anymore. And people are seeing right through it. Yes, they are still doing it, Wobbler, but at some point, it's not going to hold. At some point, the people are just not going to have it. That's where we're at. And do I believe that we can salvage our circumstance? I think we've got a small chance, but it's still a chance nonetheless. But the powers that be are not going to change. You're going to have to rip it from their cold, dead hands. That's the difference. So we'll see. I remain cautiously optimistic, as I like to say. But I also know that we have to accept the fact that sometimes we're going to have allies in places that we normally don't expect them to be. That is the essence of the message that I think has come out regarding somebody like Tucker Carlson. Because in the end, while I have strong disagreements with Tucker, I also have agreements strongly with Tucker on numerous issues. One of the biggest problems we've encountered in politics over the last several years is this idea of purity tests, in that even if there was a crucial issue that there was agreement on, because there is a definite disagreement on another, that we simply cannot break bread with that person. And we have to get out of that mindset. It's going to end us if we don't. The individualism, in many ways, finds its way into all of these situations. But this conversation that took place, I believe, 2 nights ago between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, which I think was an interview, but it kind of morphed into a debate. And of course, it settled on Israel in a very big way. So here's what happened between Tucker Carlson and Ted. Yes, they are. Israel is controlling our foreign policy, and even fucking dumbasses know this at this point. Does everybody know how much money Ted Cruz has taken from the Israel lobby? That we know of on paper, just under $2 million.
You said, I'm asking. And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's.
You're lucky that's all he called you. He should have called you a lot worse. Tel Aviv Ted. There's plenty of worse nicknames. The last election, Israel spent over 250, the Israel lobby, and again, this is only on paper. Israel spent over $250 million on the election cycle. And you're telling me that there isn't a significant amount of control that comes from that? We all know that it does. And they decided that they were going to kick a couple of members of Congress out that were not in lockstep with the Israel lobby's narrative, Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. Why would that be a main goal of you getting into Congress, is the defense of a foreign nation? What the fuck does that have to do with anything? That has to be the big question here. Why would anybody, I mean, just put any other country on the marquee, any other one. It is my duty to defend the nation of the Congo. Oh, I got a better one. Do you see how this country reacts to Congresswoman Ilhan Omar when she says anything positive about the ravaged country of Somalia that she comes from? They want to throw her in a burning pit. And that's just one congressional representative talking about the material conditions of the nation she comes from and how bad they are and how we should try to do what we can to help them. But nope. That's grounds for public hanging as far as people are concerned. But when it comes to Israel, get on your knees, baby, and pucker up.
And I'm
well, you look like a clown to begin with, so you might as well laugh like one while you're at it. You know, they've done surveys amongst the elected senators. Of course, they don't put their names on it. They're just given an opportunity off the record to share their sentiments about their fellow elected officials on the Hill. The most hated senator among senators is Ted Cruz by like a 90% margin. Everybody hates him. And it's not that they hate him because he's an asshole or because he can't get along with others. It's because he's a two-faced fuck. Backstabber, slick as grease oil. He wears it on his face. You can't trust him as far as you could throw him. He will lie for $1 or $1 million. And he is completely content to walk that line for the Israel lobby. But you know what? I'm glad he did. Because all this interview is doing is exposing. It's completely exposing the utter hypocrisy of anyone who comes to Israel's defense. So you want to topple a country with 92 million people, knowing full well that if you bring regime change, or at least attempt it, I shouldn't say you're going to bring it, because it's actually not that likely, but even if it was, he wants to bring regime change to a country with 92 million people. That's almost a third of our population. Could you imagine how ravaged those people would end up being? I mean, we've already seen what we've done to Gaza, and that's 2 million people. Can you imagine what will happen if it's over 90? But what the fuck does he care? He's a U.S. senator who is basically guaranteed re-election every 6 years. Ted Cruz can sit in that fucking seat for as long as Mitch McConnell has sat in his, for as long as Chuck Schumer is sitting in his. That's the truth. Ted Cruz, I tell you, he really loves being a senator. He loves that power. He loves that prestige. He can't get enough of it. So what ostensibly Tucker is implying here is you do understand how many lives will be either ruined or ended as a result of your malfeasance in foreign policy decision-making. Ted's like, no big deal. Where's my check? What's actually very interesting about this, and you see a lot of the, let's just say, people that don't like educated people because they're not educated in the social media chats, trying to give Tucker a hard time because he thinks you should be educated about the decisions you're making when it comes to political choices. Ooh, what the hell is the point of knowing how many people live in Iran? Hey, do you know the meaning of this, that, and that? The irrational thought process. This is what happens with the dumbing down of our nation. Do you know that China spends as much on education as we spend on our military? Did you know that? And yet we embrace ignorance in our country. And Ted Cruz, who was a U.S. senator, who went to Ivy League institutions, doesn't matter. He's still proving that it isn't necessarily what you know, it's who you know. Case in point.
Senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government. You're the one who claims anything about the country. No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
Oh, so now we're going back to it's Iran that's murdering Donald Trump. See, that's what was that. I totally missed that. I didn't realize that was the order of the day, Mr. Cruz. Isn't his name Carlos or something? I forgot what his first name really is. It would also speak to this idea, and there is no question that the powers that be tried to assassinate Trump. They absolutely did. He just turned his head ever so slightly, and that's why he's alive. But they would have you believe that a gunman sitting on a rooftop with a rifle and a scope that they spotted several minutes before he was actually in position to fire, that person somehow was connected to the Iranians. I know it sounds insane that anyone would buy that bullshit, but they're counting on this idea that somehow that's true. Because if it's coming from their side, then that means it's okay. Iran tried to murder him. They don't know what else to do to try to sell this war bullshit. They really don't. Because they know the country's not with us. They were in a situation after Pearl Harbor. They could sell it. They were in a situation after the Gulf of Tonkin. They could sell it. They were in a situation with the incubator babies. They could sell it. They had 9/11. They could sell it. But then they couldn't sell it anymore. And little by little, the erosion of belief in this system has completely dissipated. So now when they talk, no one believes them. And they shouldn't. Because the only people online that are defending Ted Cruz are people that are either being paid to or they're ideologically aligned with genocidal Israel. Oh, are we really? We're carrying out military strikes today? I thought we weren't involved in any type of military strikes. Maybe we were going to provide some aid. But Ted Cruz, let me tell you, that was a rope-a-dope move by Tucker Carlson if there ever was one. Well, you would think that if they were really trying to assassinate the president, that we would have attacked them or retaliated against them. We did retaliate against them. We are attacking them. Wait. Oh, shit. Did I say that? Yes, you did.
Said Israel was. Right. With our help.
With our help.
I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're... Right now, people are listening. Okay.
Yeah, people are listening. I know I'm listening. And I don't like what I'm hearing. And I don't know who in the hell else would be liking what they're hearing either. And that should scare people. I don't want people to be scared. I just want people to understand that this is our situation. This situation, you can cut the tension with a fucking knife. And as I said, being here in America, we are extremely privileged. Extremely privileged. Because for the most part, we don't have to worry about death from above raining down upon us. But at any moment, if you're in the Middle East, it could happen. And even joking about it is insane. But I did want to point out that this one piece of stupidity about Ted Cruz that cannot be ignored. And that should not even be up for dispute. That's the point. Even countries that we perceive to be our enemy, they are living such more prosperous lives than we are. Russia and China have universal health care. We don't. Russia and China invest in their country's education. We don't. They invest legitimately in their country's infrastructure. Have you seen the high-speed rail system in China? Have you seen how well educated those kids are? What the fuck do we invest in? We put $1 trillion into endless war. Have you had enough? Tucker's right. He was right from the start. He was right throughout. He absolutely nailed it. And in case you are wondering whether Ted Cruz is actually just a completely rehearsed idiot and just does not have any semblance of individual thought, that everything he does is calculated. This is what he said regarding, of all places, Cuba, where his father's from.
My father was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba. I hate communists. It was actually Batista that tortured my dad.
So what you're admitting is that your father was tortured by an ultra-capitalist, not a communist. And I am not here to defend Castro in any way. But if you are going to say that I hate communism, my father was tortured by a super capitalist, but communism is really what gets me going. He's just a slime ball. Like a real slime ball. AIPAC wasted no time in treating this so-called debate as to, and again, it wasn't supposed to be a debate. It was supposed to be an interview. It turned into a debate. And AIPAC just couldn't help themselves, saying, thank you, Ted Cruz, for being a champion of the U.S.-Israel relationship, advancing policies that strengthen our mutually beneficial alliance with Israel. AIPAC and our 5 million grassroots members, can you 5 million? Grassroots members from across the United States are proud to stand with pro-Israel leaders like you. And that they are. Colin, please pull up the Tucker Carlson tweet. You've got that one handy. This is how this all started. I sent it to you, Colin. I'll send it again. Hang on a minute. All right, so load this one up if you can, please. Just check your text. Is that it? Good. From Tucker Carlson. The real divide isn't between people who support Israel and people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between those who casually encourage violence and those who seek to prevent it, between warmongers and peacemakers. Who are the warmongers? They would include anyone who's calling Donald Trump today to demand airstrikes and other direct U.S. military involvement in a war with Iran. On that list, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Rupert Murdoch, Ike Perlmutter, and Miriam Adelson. At some point, they will have to all answer for this, but you should know their names now. That took a lot of courage. And I'm sure he has caught a hell of a lot of heat for actually putting their names out there. And apparently Mark Levin, the little Napoleon fuck that he is, really was unhappy with him doing that. Like really lost his mind regarding that. And I can't say I'm surprised. But I think it's important that people understand why Iran is not on board with our country and hasn't been forever. Why is that? Colin, the Iran tweet from Monroe Money, please. This is the reason why. Iran has no Rothschild central bank, no IMF loans, the region's deepest oil reserves. It supplies 87% of China's crude oil, controls the Strait of Hormuz, through which 1.2 trillion flows annually, and trades outside the US dollar. That's why we want it broken. That's correct. You know what? Sometimes people make amends for their mistakes. Tucker is one of the very rare individuals who has a major platform and admitted that he was wrong about Iraq and has been issuing penance ever since. He is trying to do good, and I give him credit for doing it. Perhaps he can be forgiven but not forgotten for his role that he played. Oh, he's owned up to it, Manwith. He has. You can look it up. He said time and again, I was dead wrong about Iraq. That, to me, I think is that's a key ingredient. Tucker did an amazing job. And Ted Cruz continues to help sink the Zionist movement. So thank you, Ted. You did a great job. Once again, if you guys are here this evening, we appreciate each and every one of your support. It really does make a difference. Remember, you can go to patreon.com/generational change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel as we close in on 40,000 subscribers, which is just, again, as I said, I can't even wrap my head around that number right now. We've had some clips recently go very viral. One of them is, I think, at like 150,000 views right now. Another one is at 110,000. So we, like I said, we're very grateful that we are on this upward trajectory. We certainly hope that it lasts. If you guys are here, make sure that you do go and check out our clips. Make sure to like the clips. Make sure to leave a comment on them. Share them if you can. Every little bit counts, and every little bit makes a difference. And so, as I stated, for those of you who are here this evening, and if you have contributed, thank you so very much. We do have some additional super chats that have come in. Land of the free, home of my rants. Thank you so much for the $10. If I were on that debate, I'd expose the truth. Videos of Israeli mobs chanting death to Arabs on Jerusalem Day. This is the hate U.S. politicians ignore while blindly backing apartheid policies. I got to tell you, I'm not really sure if they're necessarily ignoring them. I think a lot of them kind of feel the same way. We saw in the commentary from Adam Sosnick on Patrick Bet-David's show that his bigotry, especially against Muslims, it's out in the open. He freewheels it. He doesn't care. So I do believe that the politicians in many ways are a reflection of the people that they represent that are of the very worst in our society. Debbie Wasserman Schultz would be a great example of that. Alcides Espinel, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. That really makes a difference. We really appreciate it. Baby Ethernet, great to see you. Independent media and real journalism is booming recently, and I'm happy you're here. Amazing job. Love you all. We love you too, Baby Ethernet. We really appreciate you being here too. Sajat Nasir, thank you so much for the 199. Natalie Portman versus Gal Gadot, who is more redeemable? Well, that's easy. Natalie Portman. First of all, she's much better looking and she's a much better actress. So let's just leave it at that. Even if they're both Zionists, which I believe they both are. But if I had to pick between the two, there's nothing to think about. Gal Gadot is an insult to acting. At least Natalie Portman has talent. Don't touch me, I'm crazy. Thank you for the 499. The glee on Tucker's face, you can tell he's hated Cruz for years. I'm sure he has. And remember, a lot of times people just go along to get along. Tucker Carlson doesn't like Donald Trump. And that's kind of like a known thing. And that doesn't like a lot of other people. And a lot of people don't like him. But you know what? This isn't about making friends. This is about doing what's right on behalf of the people. That's the goal. That's what we're here to do. I don't care if people like me. I just need people to hear the fucking message. That's what matters. If my personality is charming in any way, wonderful. I hope you like it. But my goal with this channel now potentially passing a threshold, our goal, especially as we look to make this new transition, it is incumbent upon us to use our platform for good, to get the message out there to as many people as possible, to wake up as many people as possible, and help steer the narrative in the right direction for the sake of humanity. For this is all we've got. So let's fight together. It's better than fighting apart. JG 1982, great to see you, my friend. Thank you for the $5. Raphael changed his name. Raphael, that's right. Raphael changed his name to Ted to seem more white. Worst sellout imaginable. He does suck the big one. I'll give you that. He really does. And like I said, I thought it was funny that he did that. But, you know, we talk about the overt racism that goes on in our society, the way that we see it. And we're going to have one more topic that we're going to cover this evening. It's about the formation of Israel. It's about the Rothschilds. So I'm going to show you guys this clip in a minute. But what I do want to point out, which I thought was important, and you guys know what a supporter I am of Congressman Thomas Massie. Might have to cover that clip, Timbuktu. That is a great name. Very well done. I want to see if you guys notice anything interesting. First of all, you guys know what I think of Ayal Yacobi. He's another one who needs to get punched in his fucking vagina. But there is something very interesting about this particular photo. And this is an AI-generated image. Thomas Massie did not originally stand in this photograph with Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Rashida Tlaib. But Thomas Massie, as many of you know, is leading the effort in the House of Representatives, along with Tim Kaine in the U.S. Senate, to bring a floor vote in regards to declaring any form of military action against the country of Iran. Do you guys notice anything interesting about this particular image? Let's see if you all can figure it out. Colin, I am going to ask you, if you can you zoom in on Rashida, not Rashida, can you zoom in on Ilhan Omar's image? Okay. So what do we notice about this particular image? What do we notice with this particular image versus another image of Ilhan Omar? They made her darker. They made her nose blacker. That's what I'll call it. And this is done on purpose. This is done on purpose for a number of reasons. When you're trying to push a narrative, very much like the Zionists are doing against Mamdani in the New York mayoral race, making him darker, more full beard. The idea is to scare people, make them think that by doing so, that makes them less appealing, makes them think that they're not worthy. Anyone who can see this image, and keep in mind, I've met Ilhan on a handful of occasions, so I know she doesn't look like this. But when you're like Zionist scum suckers like Ayal Yacobi, who are trying to push a narrative, you're going to try to dress her up, make her, hijab protrude, and all that good stuff. Why? Because hoping to, by association, make that person look scary and dangerous. That's what Ilhan Omar really looks like. That's how she looks. But in that image, that's not how she looks. And they want to pretend that everybody who is a supporter of the state of Palestine is a terrorist and a racist and an anti-Semite and all that stuff. But remember, guys, it's going to fall apart. It's falling apart. We know it is. We're going to talk about this on Saturday with Colonel Wilkerson. But just to point out, the U.S. officially removed Colonel Nathan McCormick from his position at the Joint Chiefs of Staff for posts calling Israel a death cult and saying America is acting as Israel's proxy. Is there a lie here? Because I don't see it. But I'll tell you what is. This is the formation of the State of Israel.
World War I had been a conflict between rival empires, and the winners set up the League of Nations to distribute the losing side's territories between them. They called it the Mandate System, putting territories once controlled by the Ottoman and German empires under the, quote, tutelage of advanced nations until they became independent. Britain was given the mandate over Palestine, but the Palestinian people were never asked what they wanted or what independence would look like to them. Listen to what Balfour wrote to one of his colleagues.
If you're not familiar with the Balfour Declaration, that is what gave rise to the creation of the State of Israel.
In Palestine, we do not propose even to go through the form of consulting the wishes of the present inhabitants of the country.
Instead, it was the Zionists who were consulted about what their vision for Palestine was, and so the mandate ended up incorporating not just the Balfour Declaration, but several clauses requiring Britain to ensure the establishment of a Jewish home in Palestine. British rule was very accommodating to the Zionist project. The Jewish community in Palestine grew with big waves of immigration. They had their own schools and factories and even their own militia, the Haganah, and they were led by the Polish-born David Ben-Gurion, the leader of their representative body, the Jewish Agency. To the Palestinians, it was clear that Britain wasn't delivering them independence. It was delivering their country to other people.
Hence the British Empire. It's all connected, guys.
British government sent a commission called the Peel Commission to figure it out, but their proposed solution was typical. Just draw another British line on the map, divide the country, give this part to the Jews and this part to the Palestinians, and make that part of Transjordan next door. Oh, and because the Palestinians were a majority in the country, 250,000 of them would have to be removed by force to make the Jewish state viable. The Zionists knew two things. Militarily, they were stronger than the Palestinians, and Britain was exhausted by World War II, so it wouldn't have the stomach to keep fighting in Palestine. They were right. In 1947, after 30 years of occupation, Britain announced it was quitting Palestine and asked the newly formed United Nations to clean up its mess.
Balfour Declaration shows that plans for Israel existed decades before World War II. In my opinion, I don't believe Israel as a result of World War II and instead a main direct root cause for World War II. I equate Israel in many ways very much as I would equate the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was a piece of legislation that had been on the books for many years and looking for the right time to spring it up to basically launch the surveillance state. And that's effectively what happened. Amendments 4, 5, and 6 went out the window as a result. That's what happened. And the same thing here. They were looking for an opportunity to create that Zionist state, and they used the Holocaust as the backdrop in order to create it. Who knows? We weren't alive then, but we don't know what went on behind the scenes and how the Holocaust was able to be facilitated in such a capacity that it led to what it led to. Who's to say that the Zionists didn't have a hand in the Holocaust? As far as I can see, it's not really a stretch.
In November 1947, the UN, then only made up of a fraction of the world's countries, voted to partition Palestine. This plan marked off 55% of the country for a Jewish state, but the UN never explained how it could be a Jewish state when half the people in its territory were Palestinian. By the time Britain ended its mandate on May 15, 1948, 250,000 Palestinians had fled.
Actually, they were forcibly removed by the likes of David Ben-Gurion, who is speaking at that podium right now, and that is what is known as the Nakba in 1947 or 1948. That's the truth, and that's how this happened.
The night before, David Ben-Gurion announced the founding of the State of Israel, with himself as its first prime minister. He was standing under a giant portrait of Herzl, 51 years after Herzl had predicted this very moment. The Zionist militias came together as the newly formed Israel Defense Forces, but the fighting wasn't over. With the British out of the way, soldiers from several Arab countries entered Palestine. But the Israeli army was better equipped, better organized, and unlike the Arab armies, had a unified command and backing from several European countries. Israeli forces pushed into places that the UN had assigned to the Palestinian state, like the towns of Lidda and Ramle. 50,000 people were forced to flee from there, many on foot, in what became known as the Lidda Death March.
They have been standing on the Palestinians' necks for over 75 years. 77 to be exact. And still going. We have to bring an end to this, guys. That's our task. We must continue to speak truth to power about what the Zionist movement is all about, what it's been all about, why the formation of this state cannot stand. It is simply unacceptable at this point. That is our goal. We must not just bear witness, as Jen has pointed out, but we must also do what we can within our purview to make sure that the Palestinian people, especially the children, did not die in vain. Brett, thank you so much for, again, the 2 Canadian A. Great community here for all walks of life. We like everybody here. We share very similar sentiments. We have differences of opinion on a number of issues. We have strong agreements on a number of issues. But I think at the heart of it all, we recognize the very obvious and significant flaw within the system and what we must do in order to rectify that very problem. There are a lot of issues that are pressing us right now. There's a lot of issues that we can cover. But there is no question that the eye of the hurricane rests in what we as a nation are able to do if we are going to prevent World War III and dismantle the Zionist state. Because if Israel and their lobby do not get their way when it comes to Iran, it is going to be a significant blow to their ideology. I already think that we are in a place where the trust for this very system is breaking at the seams. When the cat's out of the bag, you can't put it back in. That's over and done with now. What we do going forward is of tantamount importance on all of our parts. And as I said, we will use this channel as a vessel. You're damn right we won't take the Irish. We'll never be taken anywhere. But I am confident, as I am, that the light is being shown, however slowly, because it's certainly not fast enough. We are here to do our part. Maya, there is a lot of things that are going to happen if we do not give in to the Zionist billionaire class that wants this to happen. But I'm not 100% convinced that it's all going to go the way people anticipate. I know people are scared right now, but Iran is not backing down, and Iran has the backing of some of the most powerful nations on earth, led by Russia and probably by China. Thank you very much, Betty. We have grown. Right now, our channel sits at, let's see, we are at 39,250 subscribers. As I've mentioned, we are shockingly on a heater right now that I don't really understand or can explain. But maybe things are supposed to happen this way. Thank you, Chip. Chip's been with us. Let me tell you, Chip's been with us when we were only getting 30 people on a live stream. Tonight, I think we topped out at like 260 or 270, something like that, which has been pretty consistent in terms of our high marks. We'll see what happens on Saturday, because Saturday was really the moment that really jump-started this whole thing. We got to over 2,000 live stream viewers on Saturday. And if there was any indication based on those numbers, we'll see what happens. Colonel Wilkerson will join us on Saturday. I don't know that we're necessarily going to go to 3 nights a week. I don't know if I really have the bandwidth to do that, especially with my career. But I'm glad that that our message is reverberating with people. I get that sense. I get the sense that there are people who appreciate what we're doing, what our message is. And come Monday, Jen will be back. Hopefully, Progressive Lefty, where the heck have you been? Took you long enough. Thanks for checking in. By the way, the Zionist who, I'm just going to say this. There was a Zionist troll that decided to leave a tip on this channel who wanted to get a message out there, trying to goad our mod into a fight, I guess you would say. Listen, if you're going to leave a tip, don't play into the stereotype about how you guys tip. Be a little more generous. See, now if you tip $20, I might have felt obligated to put it up and then to tear you apart. But if you're not going to be generous with your money, I mean, come on, you Zionists, you get your no-interest loans from the banks. I know about that one. Be a little generous, just a little considerate. If you really want to get my attention, if you really want people to see you on the big screen, well, can't do that if you're going to be a cheapskate. Can't accept that. Inshallah, as I would say, for Asma, for all of our friends that are here from the Muslim community, this is our goal. We're working on it. It could happen. May not happen immediately, but we've got a lot of work ahead of us. So let's make sure that we put the pedal to the metal and keep doing what we're doing. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. It's always great to be with you guys. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Saturday night.